All right. Now we should be able to hear me. Yeah, I don't even know if anybody said couldn't hear you. There's a couple, no volume. Yeah, I completely forgot to plug the mic in again. Hopefully we're good now. Somebody let me know. Can you hear me now? Are we all good? Good. Okay. All right. Let me back up. Get the disclaimers out of the way. I probably look pretty funny talking with no sound, huh? So this is a weekly live broadcast, Thursday evenings, 8 o'clock Central. For now, anyway. Used to do it at 7 o'clock Central, but I had some things change up at work, and now I'm working until 7 o'clock. So I don't know how long that'll last, but right now we're just going to do this at 8 o'clock Central on Thursday evenings. And I guess that's it for that. Before we get into it, this is a live broadcast. I don't have a topic planned out to discuss. This is just, we'll talk about whatever you want to talk about. Just keep it polite, be family friendly. Don't be hateful with anybody. If we have a disagreement, we can have a friendly debate without being hateful or anything like that. So let's jump into it. We got Ed Got Bait here. He was first, and he says, "Hey, Chris, hope all is well. Somehow I was first comment and first like." Yeah, you were. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate it. And we got Joshua here. Says, "Hey, Chris, can you make a video on how to tell a female and a male rabbit?" I have done a video on that before. Let me see if I can find it real quick. I'll send you a link. I'll put it in the chat. Give me just 1 second. Let's see how quick I can do this. If my computer will, my internet, I guess what it is. Look at that. There it is right there. Let's see if I can get that. All right. In the chat right now, there you go. There is a link to that video on how to tell a female and male rabbit apart. I'm assuming you're talking about young rabbits, baby rabbits, because if you're talking about adults, it's pretty easy to tell on adults. Once they hit sexual maturity, you can pretty much tell. Males have parts that females don't. So, I mean, you probably already know that. Linda says, "Why is it telling me the live chat has moved?" I don't know why. Honestly. Hopefully, I mean, you figured it out anyway. I guess we're good. So, I don't know why. Things got updated, I guess. Vase Place says, "Fourth like, fourth comment. Evening, Chris, Ed, Joshua, and Linda." And Andy Rabbit was the fifth one. So good to see you guys. Thanks for joining us. Andy says, yeah, she noticed it too. Have to tap on the comment bar now. Huh, interesting. We got Joy Guthrie from Western Oregon. Good to see you. All right, let's see. Who's this? Shell? Is it Shell or Shelly? I'm not sure. But Domex says, "My quail just started laying eggs. I got one that was extra large, and I opened it, and there was another egg shell and all inside of that egg." Have you ever seen anything like that? I haven't personally had an egg like that, but I have seen them. I've seen other people have had those before. It's not that uncommon, especially when your birds first start laying. You're going to get some weird eggs from time to time, great big eggs, little bitty eggs, eggs with no shell on them. You're going to get some of that kind of stuff when they first start laying. So it's not that uncommon. I haven't actually had that egg inside of another egg shell happen with me personally, but like I said, I have seen it before. So it's a weird thing. It's very strange. Scrap 5000 says, "What's up, everybody? Greetings from New York City. Smash the like button." Thank you very much, Scrap 5000. Good to see you, by the way. Thanks for joining. Andy Rabbit says, "Congratulations on your quail laying. The first eggs can be crazy." Yeah, they can. We got Buster from Oklahoma. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us. And then Verna says, "I do have a warning. If you get an egg with a leather-like sack around it, do not incubate that egg. Feed it to your dogs or your pigs instead." Yeah, that's probably good. Good advice. Oh, and yeah, you're saying that you had one in the fridge for a couple of days. I was getting ready to cook. I cut it all open, and the insides were green. Yeah, that's not good. Ray says, "We eat more quail eggs than chicken eggs." Yeah, I do too. I eat way more quail eggs than chicken eggs. Very seldom ever actually buy chicken eggs. Yeah, okay, the sound problems. There we go. Ray says, "Finally." I don't know if that means finally I got my mic plugged in so you could hear me, or finally you made it to a live broadcast, or what that means. But either way, thank you for joining us tonight. And yeah, I'm glad I got the microphone issue figured out. I didn't get home from work until 7:30, so I had 30 minutes to kind of get ready and kind of wind down for a minute. and get on the live broadcast. Not that that's a good excuse. I've forgotten to plug the mic in before, but yeah, that's what I did. I totally forgot to plug the microphone in. All right, let's see. Angela says, let drop the news. I don't know what that means. I don't know what you're saying exactly. Hey, there's Jesse Mills. Good to see you. Says, I'm in the process of giving all my dogs a bath. So just listening for now. I don't know how many dogs that is, but I can imagine. I mean, if I had to give my dog a bath, I wouldn't be very involved in the video either. Patty Toes, I don't know how that is. Says, hello from California. Good to see you. Thank you for joining us. And Ray McCarthy says, I want to talk to you about the brooder behind you. Okay, let's talk about the brooder behind me. Right now, it's meat chickens. The chickens just came in yesterday morning. I went and picked them up, and I stuck them in this brooder right here. I've used this for a quail before. I don't know how well you can see it on video right now, but it's just it's not a Rubbermaid brand, but it's like a Rubbermaid tub. It's clear. I can see through it. Right now, it's got 26 Cornish cross or roosters, actually. They're all males. 26 Cornish cross chickens in it. They're only going to be in there for a day or two, probably. A couple more days, honestly, because I've got to get them moved out to the outside shed, the big brooder I've got out there. But for two reasons, I like to keep them in this one for the first couple of days. One, just to make sure they get acclimated. I mean, when you get them in the mail, they're 2 days old, basically. They were born the 21st. I got them the 23rd, I think. No, they were born the 22nd. I got them the 24th. So they're 2 days old, basically, and they've never eaten or drinking anything. I mean, so I like to get them in this little or smaller brooder where I can kind of alleviate, all the variables and things that, go on with the outside brooder, and make sure that they get situated, make sure they find the water, the food, all that kind of stuff. And just make sure they're doing okay before I move them to the outside brooder. And the other thing is, there's a hole in my shed floor. And if you've been watching videos, you know that the last batch of chickens I got, possum got in there and got them all. So I'm pretty sure it got in through the hole in the floor. So I've got to fix that hole in the floor, which is going to be this weekend because I waited till the last minute. So anyway, we'll see. Hopefully I don't know if that got everything you wanted, but you can ask me more questions about it. We can talk about it more if you want. Blessed with Bet says, I'm in the theater. Maybe I'll catch the end later. What are you doing joining in the theater? Well, thank you for joining, I guess. But yeah, take some time. Go watch your movie or whatever you're doing. Vase Place, it's the same for cuy as it is for rabbits. What is the same? I don't know what we're talking about. I'm kind of lost on that one. I don't know what we're talking about. Hey, there's Brandon from Whiskey Tango Farm. Says, good evening, Chris and everybody. How is everyone doing on this fine evening? I'm doing well. Hopefully you are too. It's a little warm in here because, I got the brooder going behind me with the heat lamp on it. I've had this door closed all day to make sure the dog didn't get in here and mess with them. And you can tell he's laying down. I don't know if you can see him. You can probably see his back end right there. He's laying down right beside me. He's very interested in the chickens, but it made this room very hot and stuffy. So it is a little warm for me, but I'll make it through. It'll be all right. Joy says, I put 62 eggs in lockdown yesterday. I've got so many hatched, I can't count them. They run fast. Yeah, it's impossible to count through the glass in the window. It's just, or through the plastic window, I guess it is. It's like impossible to count them. Sometimes it sounds like more than it is. It just sounds like a whole ton of them in there. And you look through that window and it's all fogged up and probably got water droplets on it. And you can see movement in there, but there's no way you can know how many there are. It's almost impossible to count them when you put them in the brooder box because they're moving around. You can't keep track of which ones you've counted, which ones you haven't counted. So I always have to resort to just count them as I put them in. As I'm getting them, I got 3 in this handful. That's 3 more. That's 6, count them that way. But other than that, it's very difficult to count your baby quail for sure. Let's see where we at here. Joshua Davis says, hey, and I got some turkeys too. Well, awesome. Congratulations on your turkeys. Let's see. Patty says, how do I introduce a new young male quail to an established group of female quails? Well, it depends on how old that young male quail is. If he's not quite sexually mature, if he's like the 4 weeks or under, throw him in there. He should be fine. I wouldn't worry about it at all. I move I move birds in all the time at like 2 to 4 weeks, and never have problems with them. They always do just great. Now, if he's older than that, if he's older than say about 5 weeks anyway, he's starting to get real close to sexual maturity. You might have a little bit of a tricky part right there. So there's a couple of things you can do. I have heard people talk about misting them down with like a vinegar solution to kind of mask the smell. I don't know. Theoretically, I don't know why that would work, but people have reported it works. So you could try that. I don't think that quail even have much of a sense of smell. I never thought they did anyway. I may be completely wrong, and I may just be going off of, things I've heard in the past. So I don't know. What else can you do? You can try to just throw him in there and see how he does, and watch him very closely, make sure he doesn't get too beat up, but that's kind of risky, especially this time of year when breeding behavior is going on and your birds are probably laying eggs, your other roosters are crowing. It's going to be tricky to move him in as an adult, just one bird into that flock. He's probably going to get beat up a little bit. Now, that may or may not be a big issue. Sometimes I've had birds, they go through this kind of establishing the pecking order, and once they do that, everything's fine. But I've had other birds that will just pretty much kill a new bird that gets introduced. So it can be a little tricky. If you have a way to put him in there where he is separated from the other birds physically, they can't get to him, like in a small cage, a wire cage or something, so he can be around them, but not actually be in physical contact with them. That's one way you can do that. You can try moving them all to a brand new enclosure. That's probably going to cease your egg, laying for a week or two. But you could try moving them all to a new environment. In a new environment, they're going to be less likely to be able to fight or anything like that. So that's another way you can do that. I've heard Zach from My Shire Farm talk about take all the birds out, put them in a carrier case, whatever, put them in a temporary cage for a couple of hours, and then put them all back in with the new bird. And that might work too. So there's a couple of different things that you can try to get that done. I would just watch him fairly closely for the first, couple of days, and look for like signs of pecking around the eyes is what you want to look for. That's going to be signs of aggression where they're not accepting him. They're trying to beat him up, and watch pretty closely, see if you have any of that behavior going on, and you may have to remove him for a little while or something like that. Excuse me. Joy says, I have an egg inside an egg recently, or had one. The bird almost prolapsed. Glad I was there to help her. Interesting. Hey, there's Curtis Snow. Good to see you. The Bam family says, good morning, Chris, from the Philippines. Awesome. Thank you for joining all the way from the Philippines. Let's see. Verna says, I don't buy chicken eggs at all, against my religion. Let's see. Practical Junk says, cool. I thought my phone was messing up. Happy I logged back on. Yeah, I'm happy you logged back on too. Great. Thanks for hanging around and figuring out the issues. What is it? Spider Revis says, hello, Chris. First time watching you live chat. Well, thank you for joining us tonight. Hopefully you find it helpful or entertaining or something along that line. Bill Thompson says, I have 40 quail and that are 4 weeks old, 20 in each level of my cage. One rooster is already going completely ballistic, chasing every bird and pecking them relentlessly, wondering what to do. If it was me, I would probably eat him, because that sounds like more than just breeding behavior, but maybe not. You might just give him a little while. When roosters, especially when they first come of age and first hit sexual maturity, you said they're 4 weeks old. That sounds awful young for that. But it's possible he may be maturing just a little bit early. And they tend to be just a little bit more rambunctious at that point. And then they calm down as time goes on a little bit. As long as he's not really getting, like I said, going for the eyes of the other birds. That's what you're going to want to watch for, is signs of like feather loss right around their eyes, pecking, any of those kinds of things. That's a sign of aggression. And I would probably remove him from the rest of the birds, put him in a grow out pen until he gets big enough, and then put him in the freezer. But that's just how I would handle it. See, Ray says, thanks for the brooder update. Been raising Delawares after 6 Cornish cross. Yeah, well, you're absolutely welcome. Good. I'm not familiar with Delawares, really. I think those are a egg-laying hen, aren't they? Let me look that up real quick and see what it is. Okay, yeah, I've seen those before. Didn't know what they were called. It's primarily suited to meat production, but also lays reasonably well. So it's kind of a dual purpose bird. Interesting. Kind of curious how those things work out. I do like the Cornish cross because I'm in the city, so I have to be kind of careful with what I do here. I can't get away with too much. These things grow out incredibly fast. You might be able to hear them chirping behind me. I don't know if that's picking up on the mic or not, but anyway, they grow incredibly fast. So it's only really about, they'll be in the brooder box for 2 to 3 weeks, somewhere right around in there. Just depends on when they fully feather out. And then they'll be out in the outside tractor for just about 4 or 5 weeks before they get processed and get put in the freezer. So I don't have to worry about really getting any complaints or any of those kinds of things. And I'm good to go. Oh, okay. That's what you were talking about, Verna. She says sexing rabbits are the same as sexing cooey. Okay, I get it. That makes sense now. Rob says, got some Andalusians in the brooder. Andalusian? I don't know what those are in the brooder now, but hopefully in the incubator now. Okay. I don't know what that is. What is that? I'm assuming it's a type of chicken? I don't know. Not real familiar with that. Let's see. That can't be right because that comes up with a horse. Andalusian horse or something like that. Is there a chicken for that too? Yeah, there's a chicken. Okay. When I just search the word, it comes up horse. There's no way you'd have horses in the brooder. Okay, interesting. Not familiar with those. I'll have to look more into them later. Brandon says from Whiskey Tango Farm says, got a bunch of bee videos coming out. If you want to take a look, watch me create a buzz installing my nucleus colony. Interesting. I've thought about doing bees before. I'll have to check out your videos. I've thought about doing it, but I haven't actually thought seriously about doing it. I hear it's pretty expensive to get into, and I got enough going on right now. Larry says, just sub channel. Chris, I appreciate all the info and the quail. Thank you from California. Well, thank you very much for the kind comments. I appreciate that. And hopefully you get some information you're looking for out of the channel. Brandon says hello to Max. Max, they're talking to you, buddy. He's wagging his tail. I don't know if you can see it, but he wagged his tail. He was happy about it. He's not lifting his head, though. Jupiter, the Argentine Tegu, says, hey, Chris, hope you're doing well. I am doing well. We haven't seen you in a while. Thanks for coming back. Bob says, got another quintet from Southwest this morning. Big, healthy birds. Have 16 in the incubator now from a batch I got in December. Awesome. Well, good luck with those. I hope they do well. Joshua says, and we did have quail, but we had to get rid of them because they were too small. Hey, I understand completely. The jumbo quail are bigger than the standards, but they're still not great big birds. So I get it if you think they're too small and you just don't want to raise them because of that. I get it. I understand completely. Ray says, my quail sound like a cattle stampede. Yeah, when they're in the incubator running around, yeah, it's surprisingly noisy. Bob says, can I let my birds from same hatch breed? Yeah, you can, for sure. Especially, now I don't know if we're talking about your chickens, your quail, but it really kind of all is about the same. But, like with your quail, especially if you've got like a group like mine where I've got a couple of roosters and multiple hens, there's no way to know which rooster and which hen were responsible for that baby. There's no way to separate them out. Yes, you can definitely let them breed. You're looking at many, many generations before you're going to have any kinds of issues with inbreeding or anything like that. What I typically do is I bring a new blood in about every couple of years, something like that. And that's more than enough. You could probably go 5-6 years with, just breeding, taking the babies from that batch, turning those into breeders and breeding them, and then taking those babies and breeding them. And, do that for 5 or 6 years at least before you kind of have any kind of really adverse issues with that. In fact, you may get some good, strong, some good attributes passed on if you do it right too. Yeah, Practical Junk is saying to look up line breeding. Yeah, that's for sure. The problem with line breeding, though, not that there's a problem with line breeding, but what I'm saying with quail and stuff is it's not like with rabbits where you can keep very close track of which babies were born to which buck and which doe. With the quail, unless you're keeping them in just very small breeder cages where you can, one rooster only, then there's no way to know. You just don't know. So it's a little bit trickier to kind of keep track of. But again, that just basically means there's not an issue with it. Go for it. What was Andy Rabbit saying? Gonna make bee venom cream, huh? I don't know what that is, but I'll have to look that up too. Jupiter says, I haven't been able to watch your last few videos because a barking dog in the background. Is that Max or a neighbor dog? Yeah, it's the neighbor's dog. That dog, I swear. It's not all the time. It's only when I'm out there, and especially when I'm talking. Like if I'm talking to the camera or talking to somebody, that dog just goes nuts, barking non-stop. And it's not it's a friendly dog. It just wants some attention, I think. I don't know what it's doing exactly, what's causing it, but yeah, I cannot. I'm hoping. She mentioned the other day, the neighbor, she's older, but she asked me, she said, you want a dog? And she said something about trying to get rid of it. Nobody wanted it. I don't know if she was joking around or serious. I'm kind of hoping she's serious and she's trying to find a home for that dog because it really is becoming an issue on the videos for sure. Katrina says, hi to everyone from Gilroy, California. I hope all is well. Just got done processing 14 rabbits. Only 2 were female. Well, that's unusual. Usually you get I don't guess it's super unusual, but 14, 2 of them only being female, that does seem a little rare, but I guess you process them, so it doesn't really matter, does it? Where are we at here? Spider Rivas says, about to finish my first quail using Chris Design and getting my first quails in 2 weeks. I think you're saying you're about to finish your first quail hutch modeled after my design, I think is what you're saying there. So yeah, that's been a great design for me. It's worked really well for me. I've been pretty happy with it. So hopefully it works as well for you as it does for me. And good, congratulations on your new quail coming. Rick says, hey man, hope all is well. Yep, I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. Hopefully you are too. Rick Britton says, I'm having terrible hatch rates. Well, I'm sorry to hear that, Rick. I don't know if you've been on live or been on videos where we've talked about this before. It seems like a pretty common issue that we talk about almost every time we get a live. The very first thing to check if you're having bad hatch rates is your temperature of your incubator, because it's very common especially if you're using like a styrofoam, any incubator really, any kind of like commercial incubator, residential incubator, I should say, not big cabinet styles, but for the most part, any incubator you get, it's very common for those to not read temperature completely accurately. And it may be off by just a degree or two. And that's going to make a big, big difference in your hatch rate. Temperature is the most important thing when it comes to hatching out your birds. Second would be humidity, but unless you live in an incredibly dry or incredibly humid environment, then that's probably not the issue. The issue is probably temperature. So what I suggest is get a couple of gather my thoughts. Get a couple of thermometers, calibrate them, make sure they're accurate. And I always say get 2 so you don't have any guesswork. If you just put 1 thermometer in your incubator and it reads different than what your incubator says, well, you don't know which one's right. But if you get 2 thermometers, put them in your incubator, and they read the same, then you know that that's probably the right temperature, and you can adjust your incubator to get it to the right temperature you need, 99.5 degrees. Or 99.9 degrees really is what it is. But anyway, 99.5 to 99.9. The other things I will tell you to look out for if you've done all that and you know your incubator is reading correctly is make sure that you put your incubator in a place that's fairly stable with temperature. It doesn't have to be incredibly stable, just fairly stable. So don't put it like over an air conditioner vent. Or what I had an issue with here, you can't see my incubator because it's sitting over there on the side here and out of camera view. But there's a window right there. And I had the blinds open at one point, and as the sun was coming across in the middle of the day, hitting right on top of that incubator, my hatch rates were terrible. I couldn't figure it out. Finally hit me. Duh. I wasn't home during the middle of the day to see that. So I closed the blinds, boom, fixed my hatch rate issues. Because the sun was coming, basically as it was going across the front of the house during the day, shining through that window right on the incubator, heating it up. So, yeah, that was an issue. So anyway, those are a couple of tips. If that's, if you need more information on that, or if that's not it, let me know in the comment or the chat here itself. We'll dive further into it, but that's usually the issue. Don from South Central Illinois, good to see you. Let's see. Patty says, thank you for the tips, Chris. You're absolutely welcome. Hopefully that helps you out. And Brandon says, okay, he's talking to Andy Rabbit. I'll let you guys talk. Rick wants some quail recipes. Well, Verna, yep, there she already posted it. There is the quail cookbooks that have been put out by Verna, and they're available on My Shire Farms, Quail in the Kitchen. And I don't know, there's a couple of copies of them, definitely. So there's definitely recipes in there. Just to give you a couple of quick ones to get going, almost everybody likes quail. It's a very lean meat. There's not much fat on it, which is pretty common, I think, of a lot of animals that we raise in a small homestead, like rabbits, quail, chickens, not so much. But, anyway. So with that being said, I don't think it does real well fried because it's too lean. It can get tough if you try to fry it. But other than that, cook it kind of like you would chicken. You can pretty much replace chicken. I've made, quail quesadillas before where you would use chicken, quail enchiladas. All that stuff's very, very good. Quick, easy recipe for them. Cut the breast meat off the bone. And then you've got the little tenderloin inside. It's just like a chicken breast. So you've got the little tenderloin inside. You can kind of pull that out. Leaves a little bit of a caved in area right there. You can put a piece of, cheddar cheese, pepper jack, whatever you like. Wrap it with some bacon. Brush it with either a barbecue sauce. One of the things I like to do is I like to put blue cheese in it. Wrap it with bacon, Frank's Red Hot over it, and then basically throw it on the grill until the bacon's done. Very, very good. But you can also do that with cheddar cheese and barbecue sauce or, whatever you like. Just mix it up. Also like a basic saute. So I always cut the meat off the bone, but you don't have to do it. I kind of like to do it that way. So you'll end up with two breasts, basically, that you cut off the bone itself. And then just like you would debreast a chicken, it's kind of the same thing. And then lightly dredge that in some flour. Just brown it in a little bit of oil, bacon fat, whatever it is you like. Butter would work fine too, whatever kind of fat you like. Brown it on all sides, just where it's brown. You're not looking to cook it, you're just looking to brown the flour on it, basically. Remove that, saute down some onions, peppers, whatever you like, and then basically throw some flour in there, make a roux, and make a gravy more or less. So you throw some flour in there to make a thick paste, and the flour, cook that to get the flour taste out of it. Add some liquid, whether that be a heavy cream, a milk, a water, whatever it is, to thin that out to like you're making a gravy. Put the quail back in there and then saute till it's done, or, cover it and let it simmer until it's done, which is, 15-20 minutes, something like that. It'll be done, and that's very, very good. So anyway, there's a couple of quick recipes that you can kind of work with. Where we at here? Yeah. Katrina's got a video. She's talking to Rick. She says, summer's coming. I convert my car into a solar oven. It's the best cooked in the car. I don't know about that. But anyway, you said you have a video on your channel, Sew and Tear. Yeah, I've seen that video. Go check it out. It's interesting for sure. Jennifer says, question. Hello, Chris. Where did you find your meat chicks? Also, what do you feed them? I love your videos. So I feed them chicken food. I know. Sounds crazy, doesn't it? But specifically, what I do is I buy one bag of a medicated chick starter. That's what I start them off with until they get through that bag, and then they go to a regular chick grower at that point, non-medicated. That's what I feed them. I bought them from a place called The Chick Hatchery. That was the best price I found on them. They were 26. Well, I ordered 25. They sent 26. Didn't have any losses in the mail. That's good. And they do guarantee live delivery. They gave me, this is the second time I've ordered from them because I had a possum get the last ones, and they gave me an overcount both times. So, I ended up with an extra bird on them, which is good. And the birds arrived good. They're healthy. They're all good. The cheapest place I found, these were 25 birds, put it that way, that I bought and had shipped to my house. Well, shipped to the post office. I picked them up from there, and it was $60 total. So that's the best price I could find on them, and they had availability. So it worked out pretty well for me. Did that answer all your questions? I think that kind of got it. I'm going to do a video on these start to finish Cornish cross, or raising meat chickens Cornish cross start to finish, because somebody requested that. So there'll be a whole video comes out, shows them from when I got them to when it's time to process them, but put them in the freezer. And I'll talk more about that then. But just quick, you feed them basically 24 hours a day, give them food 24 hours a day for the first 2 weeks roughly. And then we're going to switch them to 12 hours on, 12 hours off. So I take the food away every night. Always make sure they have water, of course. But if you leave food with them constantly for their whole life, they'll eat themselves to death. They'll eat so much that they'll outgrow their legs or have heart problems or something like that. So that's just kind of a quick rundown. Hopefully that kind of answers the questions for you. Curtis says, glad to see you got your meat birds in. Hopefully better outcome than the last batch. Yeah, hopefully so. We did end up with 2 birds that survived the possum attack. One of them had a busted up leg, but it lived. It was doing okay, so I just kind of let it go. It did look like, I thought about putting it down because I wasn't sure if it was suffering or not, but then I got the visions of the, Monty Python where, bring out your dead. And the guy's like, I'm not dead yet. And you're like, yes, you are. And, that kind of thing. So I decided, well, we'll just let him go. And he actually did pretty well. He got around okay, ate okay. You could definitely tell his leg was messed up, but it didn't seem to really bother him too much. So anyway, those got processed last weekend. Got those processed, 2 of them, put them in the freeze. So we'll just consider it a trial run, I guess, for the next batch. That was the first one this year. Yeah, Matthew Crockett says cheaping away. Yeah, they are. They're not too overly noisy right now. Brandon says, how's the garden coming along? We have our corn and potatoes planted. The potatoes are starting to come up. Just got the peppers and tomatoes planted today. Yeah, there's not a whole lot going on in the garden yet. It's all planted out. Tomatoes, peppers, the potatoes were planted way back in March. So they're already, they're this tall. The plant, the top of the plants they're doing great. Let's see what else. Everything else is just kind of starting to go now. I got the tomatoes and stuff in the ground, but they're not super fast growing. So they've grown. They've definitely put on some girth and some height, but it's hard to tell how much, but they're all doing okay so far. So had to reseed cucumbers because they came up and the slugs ate them. And then, so now I had to reseed them. I haven't been out there to check to see if the seeds have come up. I just did that a couple of days ago. Ray says, I plan to cross a Delaware with a Cornish cross. Interesting. I don't know how well that'd work or not, but try it out and see how it works. Jacob says, how much is everyone getting for their processed quail? Is it typically for a fixed price per bird, or like $10 or charge per ounce? I don't sell processed quail, so I can't answer that question for you. I don't even think I've ever seen it come up for sale. We'll see if somebody else has some feedback on that. Jerome says, is it true that, oh wait, I missed Rick. Rick Britton says, hope all is well. It is. Thank you. Hopefully you're well too. Jerome says, is it true that eating 1 piece of quail egg is equivalent to 3 pieces of regular chicken egg when it comes to nutrients? That is the common notion here in the Philippines, and why elders refuse to eat it. They refuse to eat it because it's 3 times as nutritious as a regular chicken egg. I'm not sure if I understand that exactly, but I honestly can't tell you that. I've read that quail eggs are more nutritious than regular chicken eggs. They have more nutrients in them. I did a video a while back on some studies that were done. It's been a long time, several years ago, on some studies that were done on the health benefits that you can get from eating quail eggs. And there's some real medical evidence, real scientific evidence that they can treat all kinds of different things, from like diabetes to like lung issues. All kinds of things. But you have to eat them raw to get those benefits out of them. But yeah, I don't know exactly how. I'm not a nutritionist, so I don't know if that's all true, what they say online about it. I would assume, I've seen the stuff that says they are more nutritious. How much more nutritious? I don't really know. I don't know. I'm sorry, I can't answer that one for you. So that's, Katrina says that's how you pronounce. Okay, so it's Andalusian. Andalusian is that type of chicken. Okay. Yeah, it's not a horse. Well, I guess there is a horse like that too, but that's not what you're putting in your incubator. Lyndon says, hey, I can make the live time now after work. What's up, Chris? Been a long time since I made a live. Well, yeah, I'm sorry about that. It's hard for me to, well, I'm not sorry. I'm glad you can make the live. Thank you. And I'm glad that it works out for you. Honestly, though, when it works out that I can go back to 7 o'clock, I probably will. These later lives are kind of rough on me because it's 9 o'clock before I get off this live, and I'm going to bed usually 9:30ish. I've been staying up a little bit later, but the problem is by the end of the week, especially. This is way off topic. You got me on a rabbit hole, but let's explain it anyway. So basically, some things have happened at work. We lost one of our clients, so we had a big reduction in our workforce. So I had to move to a different position for a little while. And that position, I'm working 11 in the morning till 7 o'clock at night. Well, I've been, for years and years and years, I've been a day shift person where I'm getting up and I'm starting work usually from home 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. And then I work till about 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon usually. Well, now I'm not going in until 11 and working till 7. I still do a couple of things sometimes early in the morning, not early, but before I go into the office at 11, I still do several things for work, but that's not the point. The point is that because I'm working till 7 o'clock, that I'm not getting home till 7:30. And, I was used to going to bed about 9 to 9:30. Because I was getting up at 4:35 in the morning. And it's hard to break that habit. I've been trying to stay up a little bit later so I could sleep in a little bit later. So I have a little bit of time after work because you get home at 7:30. By the time I get dinner cooked, it's like 8:30, and I don't want to just eat dinner and go to bed. So I've been trying to stay up a little bit later, but the problem is I can't sleep in. I can't sleep past I'm doing good if I sleep till 6 in the morning. So, by the end of the week, it starts catching up to me. But long story short, I'm glad you could make it, and we'll be all right. I'm not really complaining. I'm glad I still have a job. I mean, it could be a lot worse. But anyway, let's get back to the chats. So Katrina says, how's the garden doing? I have cherries ripening this weekend. Yeah, you're in California, aren't you? You guys can pretty much garden all year round. We have a little bit more of a limited. So we have a fairly long growing season here. We can go from about, May to end of October, roughly, before things, start to really die off then. But anyway, I kind of already ran through how the garden was doing. It's not bad. It's doing pretty good, but there's just not much to show for it yet because it's early. Things have been in the ground 2 weeks, 3 maybe at the most. So it's not been a long time. Rick says, thanks for all the info. Your videos are great. Well, thank you so much, Rick. I appreciate that. So Vay's Place says, Jerome, it's usually 3 chicken eggs to 1 chicken egg. But there are more nutrients in quail eggs than chickens. Quail is higher on B complex vitamins. Yeah, I think, you're right. As far as the volume goes, yeah, it takes about 3 to 4 quail eggs to make the same amount of volume as a chicken egg. But as far as how much more nutritious and what all they have in them that's more than what chicken eggs, I don't really know. I haven't really looked into that in detail. Not that well versed on it. I've seen stuff on it, but I haven't. I'm not super interested in it. So I really don't care. So if that makes sense, I don't mean that I don't care at all. I just mean I don't care enough to really look into it, study it, and figure out if it's true. As long as they're not bad for me, I believe that eggs in general are good for you. They're one of the best food sources you can eat. They're just everything all in one little package. They're great. But, as far as whether a quail egg is better than a chicken egg, I don't know. And I don't know that it matters that much to me. Rick says, I've got 70 in the incubator on my 7th chick. So 70 in the incubator. I don't know. You have 7 that have hatched already from the 70 in the incubator, maybe? Is that what you're saying? Well, congratulations on those. Hopefully you get a whole bunch more. Patty says, how many generations can I breed from my original quail? Many, many generations. I don't even know the number. It's a lot. So don't stress about that. Try to bring in some new blood, whenever you can. I do it probably every 2, sometimes 3 years, but you could go 5, 6, 7 years and it would be okay. It's not that big of a deal. Brandon says it's definitely not a cheap hobby to get into, doing the bees. I have more into them than I would like to admit. Yeah, I've heard that. I knew somebody here locally that did bees. Um, Somebody I used to go to church with, actually, and they had a really neat thing set up. They always let all of their kids, they gave them an option to do some kind of business, and they all did like farm related business. One of them did chickens and sold eggs, and one of them did goats and sold the baby goats, and the other one did bees. And she said by far the bees were the most expensive for them to get into. So interesting. Britain says acknowledge with a question mark. I don't know what that means. I mean, I know what acknowledge means, but I don't know what you're asking me to do. I'm sorry. Um, Yeah, I think you're misunderstanding. Katrina says to Jerome, it depends on the size of your eggs. I measured average size ones from the yard, and a large chicken egg was 4 egg whites and 3 egg yolks. I just do 4 eggs as a substitute, knowing extra yolk. Yeah, I don't think that's what he's talking about, though. He's talking about the nutritional value. He's saying, is it true that the nutritional value of 1 quail egg is equal to that of 3 chicken eggs? Not the volume, not the size of the egg. That's not what he's asking exactly. But thank you. I mean, I agree with you. You're right. I'm not saying you're wrong. I just think you misinterpreted his question, maybe, which is easy to do. Joshua says, hey, when your meat chickens are big enough to butcher, can you make a video? Yeah, I can. I did a video on the last time we butchered chicken. Well, not when the last time, but the time, we've only been running meat chickens here for 3 years, 4 years now. Maybe it's 3. I don't remember, honestly. But the first ones that we got and processed, that was the first time I had butchered a chicken in 30 years, probably a little over. So I did videos on that, and it's on my channel somewhere. You can look back through it. I can find a video for you. Hang on just a second. We'll find it. Let's see if I can find it real quick. I think this video, I don't know if this is the exact one, but this is one anyway. This will give you, let me get back to, there we go. There you go. There's a link down there. You can go check that one out. I may do a video on these too, and I will do video on it because I'm going to be releasing the start to finish, meat chickens video, and that'll be in there. Patty says, love bees. Yeah, I like bees too. Rick says, are you seeing my comments? I am seeing your comments. Yeah, it just takes a little while. There's a delay. There's a delay in what I say until what you guys hear it. And then there's also, there's a ton of comments. I got to get through them all. So sometimes when you leave a comment, it takes me a while to get to it. So just be patient with me. I am seeing your comments. I'm getting there. Ruby says, hey, Chris, got my first batch of quail on lockdown. Just wondering if the brooder box should be a certain temperature. Thanks. Yes, it should. It should be 100 degrees, roughly. So, don't stress. 90, 98 to 100 degrees, right around in that range. That's going to be perfect for them. Watch your birds. They'll tell you if it's too hot or too cold. Now, I use a temperature controller. You can see the light going on and off behind me. I use a temperature controller. It's an Inkbird Wi-Fi enabled temperature controller. So there's a little temperature probe that goes in the brooder. I set it to 100 degrees, and it shuts the light off when it hits 100, turns it back on when it's down like 98. So that does pretty good. I don't have to worry about that too much. But watch your birds. They'll kind of tell you. You can kind of figure out if it's too hot or too cold. Now, when they first go in there, you want it right around 100 degrees. You want to keep it there for at least the first couple of days. And then a little bit of a variance below that is okay. Not much, 5 degrees. For about the first week and a half, somewhere right around in there. Then they start feathering out, and you can start reducing the temp a little bit down to about 95. Give them a couple of days of that, 90 degrees, give them a couple of days or a day or two, whatever. Watch the birds as when they acclimate to it. What you're looking for, the behavior you're looking for is, well, you can't see my birds right now. They're all just kind of spread out evenly across the brooder, and this is pretty small for these chickens. But chickens, quail, it's the same difference. But if they're all clumped together right under the heat lamp, it's too cold. You need to warm it up a little bit, move the heat lamp closer if you can. If they're all like as far away from the heat lamp as they can get, it's probably a little too warm. You need to raise the heat lamp up a little bit, cool it off a little bit for them. Always put your heat. I always put my heat lamp at one end of the brooder box so that they have a gradient of heat that they can get to. I mean, not completely at the side, but more so on one side than the other. If the birds are all just kind of moving around evenly throughout the whole brooder box, then you got it just right. So as you start to lower the temperature, they can acclimate pretty quick once they start, about a week and a half in, when you start seeing feathers coming in, the full, the adult feathers coming in, you can start acclimating to them a little bit lower temperature. Like I said, drop it down by 5 degrees. Chances are what you'll see is they'll start getting a little bit clumped up under the heat lamp for maybe a day, and then they'll spread out a little bit. They're all comfortable. They're all fine. You can lower it down a little bit more and just go through that process until you get them down to, it'll go much, much faster as they start to get more feathers in too. Hopefully that kind of helps. That's a quick rundown, but I think maybe that answered it. I don't know. Spider Rivas says, at Slightly Rednecked, what's your opinion on adding diatomite to the sand? Are you talking about, I think you're talking about diatomaceous earth, probably. Diatomite to the sand and spraying the hutch with eucalyptus spray. I don't know about eucalyptus spray at all. I don't personally like to use diatomaceous earth. There was a time, it was kind of like apple cider vinegar. There was a time when like the homesteading community as a whole was kind of like, apple cider vinegar is magical. It's not magical. It's good for you. It has probiotics in it, yes, but it's not. It doesn't fix all these issues. There was. Anyway, I'm get off my apple cider vinegar kick because that thing drove me crazy. But diatomaceous earth kind of went through the same thing where it was like a cure-all for everything. But there's actually some real risks to using it, especially around birds. It's very, very dusty, and it can lead to respiratory issues with them. They can have respiratory issues. Now, unless you've got like a huge mite infestation or bug problem or something like that, there's no reason to use it. If you have to use it, make sure you get if you do have one of those issues where you have like a mite problem or something like that, then yeah, that makes sense to use some diatomaceous earth. But make sure it's a food grade diatomaceous earth if you're going to do that. And don't use it for any longer than you have to, really. I don't see any need to. I just never had that problem. I don't have any mite problems. I have a huge earwig problem right now. Way too many of them, but they're not hurting the birds. There's just a bunch of them. But you can set traps for them. Soy sauce in a shallow container with some oil and some soy sauce in it, draws them in, and then they drown in it basically, and they work pretty well. So, but earwigs aren't a problem unless they become overcrowded and then they start eating my vegetables. So that's the only reason I've got a bunch of earwigs. But anyway, that's a little off topic for us. So hopefully that was the question. I don't know about eucalyptus spray. I don't know how that affects birds. I don't know what that would be used for. I've never used it for anything. So I don't really know on that one. But to answer your question, I don't spray down my hutches or bird. I don't use any kind of pesticides, bug treatments, any of that stuff. They get food and water and that's it. And they do fine. So, I don't see any reason to do it, but I don't have like I said, a mite problem or any kind of, I don't have an ant problem or any of those kinds of things either. Katrina says, got my freeze dryer going to start up this weekend. Awesome. Congratulations. Caesar says, what's a good starter incubator? Well, I'm going to get some opinions from the rest of the group in here because incubators have changed a lot since I bought mine. I use a little giant styrofoam incubator and I get good hatch results out of it. I love the customer service with the company. If anything goes wrong, they send me replacement parts for free. They've done that twice. And it's like, I'm probably going on 15 years with this incubator. So, but they've changed a lot. There's been a whole lot of new incubators come out. So I don't know if there's other options out there. I've heard some people talk really, really strongly about, what are they called? It's on the tip of my tongue. Brisnias. I've heard people talk really well about them, but we'll let some people that have advice with some of those other ones kind of give you that answer. If you can't land on one, and you don't feel bad about the little giants. Like I said, the customer service of the company is great, if nothing else. And I get good hatch rates out of it. So, there's that. Oh, Verna says a little giant. She suggests that too for a good starter incubator. And Ray says bad hatch rates. Check your cages by numbering them. find out the freeloaders and eliminate them as they're short-lived. Well, that's not a bad idea, Ray. Here's what I would suggest on that too, though. Just because you have a bad hatch rate does not mean you're not getting fertile eggs. So instead of measuring that on your hatch rate, if you suspect it's your birds, it's easy enough to check fertility of your eggs. And like you said, same kind of concept, but check the fertility of the eggs before incubating. You can't check the egg and then incubate it. You'll have to crack the egg open to check whether it's fertile. But gather 15 eggs from one hutch, crack them all open and see how many are fertile. And what you're looking for to get a fertile egg, to know whether it's a fertile egg or not, you're looking at the yolk. There'll be a little white dot on the yolk. That just means it's a mature egg. It could be fertilized. If it's fertile, there'll be a small, very light bullseye ring around that, just a dark ring around that white spot on the yolk. And you can look up the difference between a fertilized egg and a non-fertilized egg. I've done videos on it, but it's not hard to tell once you know what you're looking for. And then you can just kind of measure your fertility for that hatch or for that hutch. So you could, you get 10 eggs out of there and you got 2 that weren't fertile, you got 80% humidity or fertility. But chances are that's not going to be an issue. I've never had issues with it, but it could be. So just like you said, Ray, check it. If you got freeloaders there, move them out of don't let them just live there without producing fertile eggs. Andy says, I like my little giant incubators. I get good hatch rates from it. Yeah, I get good hatch rates from mine too. Jerome says, Katrina, is it safe for elder people with blood pressure issues to have the quail eggs? Yeah, I don't see any reason why they wouldn't be able to have the quail eggs. I think now I'm kind of understanding. I think I understand why you're saying older people may not want to eat those because of the cholesterol. Probably eggs are pretty high in cholesterol. They're mostly cholesterol. But I don't necessarily buy into that whole idea that cholesterol is the issue with blood pressure and all heart disease and all that kind of stuff. I don't think that's the issue. So, you'll take it with a grain of salt. If you're worried about cholesterol, then yeah, you probably shouldn't eat quail eggs, but you shouldn't eat chicken eggs either if you're worried about cholesterol and you think it's going to come from your food. But if you're not worried about cholesterol, then eat quail eggs, eat chicken eggs, eat ostrich eggs if you want to. Don't worry about it. That's kind of the opinion I'm at. You can look up, there's a whole bunch of studies that have been done that say, cholesterol really may not be the issue. Now, with that being said, I'm not a doctor, so I'm on a since I had those stents put in my leg, what is the cholesterol lowering medication you have to take? Statin. I'm on a statin to lower cholesterol. I'm not really sure I need to be on a statin. I'm not really sure my cholesterol is that high to begin with. And I'm not really sure, like I said, that cholesterol really, but I do admit that I'm not the doctor that's done all the studying. So I take my doctor's word for it. I asked them about it. They assured me it was perfectly fine to take. And so for now, I'm just taking my doctor's advice and going that way. But I haven't stopped eating eggs or anything like that. I'm going to keep eating them. Yeah, Katrina's saying quail eggs. Yeah, I would think so. If you have real concerns, ask a nutritionist. They are good for you, though. Yeah, I agree. And Verna says there's 3 cookbooks so far. I thought there was 3 or 4. I couldn't remember. Don says, what's a good way to find out in a covey what one hen never lays eggs? Boy, I don't know. That's tricky. I don't know that there is such a thing as a hen that never lays eggs. If you're not getting an egg a day from every bird in there, it may just be that they're on a cycle where you get, one bird a day is not, one bird is not laying eggs that one day, but they lay the next day. So, every bird goes through a day where they're not laying an egg, and it just looks like you may not have just one bird not laying eggs. You may just have every bird that doesn't lay an egg for one day. It takes a little while for that egg to work through. They don't just develop the egg and lay it that same day. It takes like 24 hours roughly for them to start to develop an egg. And then if you've ever processed birds like hens, you'll know they'll have several eggs inside of them at different stages of development. It just takes a little while for that to go through. But as far as identifying if you've got a bird that's not laying, how do I identify them if they're all in the same cage? Got me. I don't know how you would do that. Jerome says, have you ever tried quail adobo? I have not. I remember talking about that. I need to look that up again and see. I remember talking about that. I need to try it. There we go. I'll put a link there. Maybe I'll look it up and get to it. I always say that, and then I always have a hard time with it. Max, what are you doing, buddy? Leave those chickens alone. He's very excited about the chickens. All right. Ray says many hens that no longer lay eggs are older and they have hooked bills. Well, that's a good point. Yeah, you can usually tell your older quail because their bills are like our fingernails. They just continue to grow and grow and grow. So your older birds will usually have a long overgrown bill unless you clip them off or they have like something they're rubbing them on or something. But it's kind of like your fingernails. It'll have a white end on it that's kind of the dead part, like what you would clip off on your fingernails. The, what do you call that? The end of the part, not the quick, but the other part, you know? So yeah, you're right. You know, you can tell your older birds that way. Doesn't necessarily mean they're not laying eggs anymore, but you know, they're usually good for about 2 years. I mean, I've got birds right now that are going on 2 years old and I'm getting pretty good egg production out of them and fertile eggs and everything. But yeah, it's good practice to replace your breeders, you know, with your own stock or whatever, to replace your breeders, you know, every probably 1.5 to 2 years is about what I do. You can do it even sooner than that if you wanted to. In fact, what I think I'll probably do is the next batch that you know, these are going on probably 2 years old right now, maybe a little over 2 years old. So I think the next batch of quail I hatch, I'll raise those up and take a handful of those to become my next breeders. All right. Need to build something, huh? You got a bunch of people talking to each other. I'm going to skip over this because we're running close on time. We only got about 4 minutes left. Rick says, yum, thanks. I'm going to try that last one. Yeah, you are welcome. If you want a good video on processing or cooking quail that way, Living's Traditions did a good one on that. Let me see if I can find it real quick. We'll give you a link to it. Let's see if I can find it. Let's see, it is. Yep, here it is right here. I'll post it in the comments below. You can watch their video. It's the same process I described, basically. Just a basic saute. It's good. And that's a good recipe to use with like pretty much any wild game. Squirrel's really good that way. You know, rabbit is good that way. Anything is good that way. It's a good recipe to use just kind of across the board. Ray says bad line reading may be a problem. It could be. It's unlikely unless you're, like I said, several generations deep with line breeding. It's unlikely that that's going to be causing an issue with the hatches or anything. Katrina said, how did your lone chicken end up doing? It was actually 2 chickens, but yeah, they did fine. No problems whatsoever. They grew out just fine. The one with the messed up leg, it didn't feather out quite as full as the other one did, and it wasn't quite as big, but it's still, they grew out fine. They did just great. We processed them this weekend. They're in the freezer now. Looked great, looked healthy, everything. You could see whenever we processed the one that had the messed up leg where it was broken, basically the knee, it had been broken, but it still got around okay. Still, I mean, it just had the leg, it just stuck out to the side. Still used it a little bit and, you know, moved slower, but got around, ate, drank. It was doing fine. Rick says, I fed mine everything from boiled eggs to leftover fajitas. They are almost omnivorous, I think. You're talking about your quail? Yeah, they are omnivorous in a way. I mean, they eat in the wild. They would feed on a diet of insects and seeds. So they're not carnivores. They're not they're omnivorous. Yeah, in a way. Ray said something. I scroll. Oh my goodness, I'm not going to get through all these comments. There's so many of them I'm missing. Ray says hatching time cages are battery cages. Very cruel. I mean, it depends on how you look at it. But yeah, I kind of like to keep them in a bigger cage in a big group as opposed to individual. But if I had a very small space, like a shed or something, you know, want to keep them in smaller, you know, breeding pairs or breeding sets, it would be more like 1 rooster and 4 hens, 4 to 5 hens, somewhere around in there. Then I think they would work out pretty well. But, you know, if you think they're cruel, don't use them. I don't, I'm not necessarily disagreeing with you on that, but I don't know that they're all that bad. Spider Riva says, Chris, do you remember the measurements of the doors for your 8x3 quail hutch? Any plans to have the quail con in Florida? Well, no, can't do the quail con in Florida. We do it at Zach's farm in Ohio. Florida wouldn't be bad though. I did anyway. No, as far as I know, there's no plans to have QuailCon anywhere but my Shire Farm in Ohio. I'd hold one at my house if I could, but I don't have the room for all those people. Zach's got a pretty nice setup there. Okay, the measurements for the doors. I don't know the exact measurements for those. The 8x3, the measurements probably somewhere around, I mean, it's as tall as it needs to be. I think I gauged the height of my quail hutch based on the height of the wire I could get to wrap around it. So I think it's like 20, maybe 32 inches or 34. I can't remember how tall it is, but it's not, that's the height of the door, is that right there. Just measure your opening you're left with, and that's the size of the door. I don't remember exactly what size it came out to. So in an 8-foot long hutch, it's cut in half. There's probably I don't know, what is that, about a 5-6 inch space right there for the main post that holds the thing up, and all that stuff right there. So the door is probably like 3 feet, 3, 6, 7, like 2.5, 3 feet wide. I don't know. I'm sorry, I can't tell you, but just build everything else. Build your doors last, and build your doors to fit the hole. That's all I can tell you. That's kind of how I do. That's how I do things. I don't write them up in plans. I just kind of stick build them. So Rick says, I leave 30% in a feeder all the time. To clarify, just add that to their diet. They seem to love it. Yeah, that makes sense. And then Ray says, yeah, but very successful. I don't know what that was in reference to. I lost track of that conversation. Sorry. Bay says, there are many ways to raise and house quail. What works for you might not work for another, but it all is good. Yeah, there are many ways to do it. You're right. Absolutely. Rick says, how about a feed versus taste experiment? Yeah, I might do that. That's I don't know. That's a good thought. I may have to try that out. I am way behind. We're out of time, and I'm way behind on comments. Curtis is just now saying, LOL, love Monty Python. That was a long time ago I said that. So I have got so many comments I did not get to tonight. I'm sorry if I did not get to your comment, guys, but I got to wrap this one up. Somebody called me out by name. I can see it highlighted. Let me get that one. That's Debbie Johnson. Says, Chris, I really appreciate your YouTube videos so much. I've learned so much. We build your hutch, hatched our first 2 batches of eggs. This is our first time I caught you live. Well, awesome. I'm glad I got your comment responded to. I am so glad to hear that things are working out well for you, and thank you for the kind comments. I appreciate that. Bob says, research statins. I would never take it. Yeah, I know. I've researched them, and I just don't know yet. I may stop taking them at some point. I haven't had any adverse effects that I know of. We'll see how it goes. But all right, guys, I got to wrap this one up. Sorry if I did not get to your comments tonight. We had a pretty full house today, pretty talkative. So thank you all for joining. Thanks for keeping me on my toes for the whole live broadcast tonight. Look forward to seeing you guys next week. And I'm going to wrap it up. So as always, God bless. We'll see you guys next week. Take care.